South African police and forensic experts at the scene of what many here are calling a massacre. Gunmen with automatic weapons charged into a busy bar in this poor neighbourhood last night and opened fire, seemingly at random. 2 women were injured. The rest of the victims were all young men. Was it a robbery gone wrong? For now, the police are simply calling it a cold-blooded attack. There is shock here, but only at the high death toll.
I think this really does reflect the dire state in which our country's failures is at. We don't have visible policing in this area, and hence, there's no electricity in this area, which fuels, the crime rates in the country.
Another 4 men died last night in a similar attack in a different town. And last month, 21 teenagers died, possibly from gas or poison, in a bar in the port city of East London. This is a violent country at the best of times, but these murders have contributed to a sense of South Africa losing its way, wrestling with sky-high unemployment and deepening inequality. Andrew Harding, BBC News in Soweto.
So, how common is gun crime in South Africa and what's being done about it? Let's talk now to Adele Kirsten, who is the director of Gun Free South Africa and joins me now from Cape Town. Adele, good to talk to you. Let me ask you first of all, how common is this type of crime in South Africa?
It's very common, Marion. We wake up every morning to 23 gun deaths a day. That's how many people are shot and killed in this country every day. And it takes something like the multiple shootings of 19 people dying in 2 separate incidents to, in a way, shock us. But it's a reminder that this happens daily. This is our daily bread. 23 people shot and killed in this country every day, mostly young men. Something like 90% of our gun homicides are young men, and this is no different.
Adele, what is the problem here? Is it lax gun control or is it a high criminality?
It's both, and it's a number of other factors. It's the easy availability of guns and a gun law that, when it was passed in 2000, was able to reduce our gun deaths by almost half after 10 years. But there are loopholes in the law, and we are seeing a flooding of guns into the legal market and therefore into the illegal market. So essentially the single most important driver of this kind of lethal violence is the easy availability of guns. And of course, we know from our own experience, but also across the world, that when you reduce the pool of weapons, and when you reduce availability, when you restrict access, that is the single most effective intervention that you can do. What we also have to do, and I think it was really important that Andrew Harding mentioned this, is that we need to be having a conversation about the fact that it's young men. It's young men who are doing the killing, and it's young men who are being killed. And that needs to change.
So what can be done to change that particular aspect of it?
Well, that's the long-term change. And that's having conversations about young men and how they think about themselves, and that weapons are often thought of as an extension of their power. But it's also young men who are excluded, who are marginalized from social life, from political life, from the economy. In order to kickstart that conversation, if you remove guns from the equation, if you make it much more difficult to get guns, it creates a climate where you can begin to have that conversation in a much safer environment. And right now, we have an amendment to our gun law on the table, but it is taking too long. It was published almost a year ago, and the purpose of that amendment, if one looks at it carefully, is essentially to reduce access to guns. But our government is dragging its heels on this. And maybe is this the moment that will make all of us say, this is enough? Are we going to be outraged enough? Or is it because it's young black men that somehow we don't feel the same? We have to be asking ourselves that question. We have to be looking at ourselves in the mirror, in a sense of saying, this is not okay.
Okay, well, Adele Kirsten, it's good to talk to you. Thank you so much.